Hello, this is that's Maple in the corner, Maple Tree. This is a message for a specific collective. This is a collective that recently has had an emotional slash sort of intuitive learning experience that was sort of brought about by a transformation, a loss, some pain, and having to decide to move on from something that you realize didn't really happen to you when it was taken away or when it disappeared or vanished. You've come to realize now that it happened for you. And you're being met because of your response to that situation that could have taken you down, diminished you, or caused you to give up or count yourself as, going through something that you shouldn't have to go through or something like that. Because you didn't fall into that for an extended period of time and you've kind of come around to this acceptance and surrender to what happened, you're being given an opportunity and a gift. This is not limited to one area of your life. This is a gift that you will carry in your heart space, and it will be intuitive, and you're starting to feel it already. That intuition and this collective is essentially paying attention to giving themselves time to go into their subconscious mind. They're paying attention to their dreams. They are starting to lean into the spiritual gifts that are now flowing in because of the difficult time that they just came through. And as they lean into those, they're finding that there is a treasure trove within them of gifts, spiritual gifts that they didn't fully know that they had. I think that these are gifts that this collective sensed. Now looking back, you can see that these things were a long time coming. We're talking decades in the making, but you didn't realize it. And now you're starting to realize, based on the situation that is sort of clearing now, and you're turning your inner eye towards the empty space that has recently cleared, you're starting to see these gifts naturally emerge. And what this collective is going to find is that they were focused on an external game that was sort of shuffling around, and they were sort of touching upon their gifts, but they hadn't learned how to use those gifts yet. This collective is now stepping into a new version of themselves that is self-sufficient, that gets what they need from their interior world, because largely they were pushed out of the areas where they could be affirmed by external sources very readily. And now they've been forced almost inward to find the gifts that they had inside themselves the whole time. So in this place of self-sufficiency now, they are now coming up on the richness of that self-sufficiency. What will start to happen is that because they have turned inward and developed these intuitive gifts, their whole inner ecosystem has shifted and has essentially reconnected areas that were disconnected. I'm seeing it sort of like along the spine, and like wires that were disconnected are now reconnecting and allowing almost to be plugged back in. Plugged back in, not in terms of to the matrix, but plugged back in into the intuitive gifts that they had the whole time, waking up, plugging back into their spiritual gifts. I'm also sensing that when these connections throughout their spine reconnect, that energy will be going into their third eye area, into their crown area, and then it will be wrapping around them like a force field, and that will provide them with effortless protection that used to not be there. Essentially, the energy that they had used to leak out, and they used to run into issues based on a lot more frequently. They ran into issues of their energy not having the discipline, and that is Scout, my dog. Essentially, because they were looking at these external sources for those things that they felt that they needed, energy was leaking out, and they were relying upon other people and creating codependent situations, and they were depending on changing things outside of themselves. Now they've turned that energy inward into that unchanging part of themselves, not how they look in the mirror or any other thing, but the part of them, their being, that is never changing. That has reconnected these areas, created this force field, and now their energy is contained. And because that energy has been contained and they've become more self-sufficient, their inner battery is charging. It may have already charged all the way up, and when that charge all the way up happens, then that force field drops down as a protection. I'm sensing that shield is related to the sort of archetypal shield of virtue, because the things that they were doing before, let's say they lacked integrity, or they had to be beholden to certain things that they weren't fully being themselves about. And so now they have a shield of virtue up, and they're also wielding the sword of truth because they are more authentically expressing themselves. So in this force field, I'm sensing that a new ecosystem, you've seen those like little ecosystems contained in those glass bottles. I'm seeing a new ecosystem form with new species and new vibrations, and it's all happening with this shift there where their energy is now going in within. And without this external reliance, they are relying upon their unchanging part of themselves within. It's creating a new ecosystem, new species, new vibrations that then are going to essentially continue this process where the people that they were sort of partnering with and interacting with, a lot of those people will fall away, because in this new ecosystem of energy, there is not a resonance anymore. And so people from past vibrations will pass away and fall away from their lives. But at the same time, that's opening up space for a new collective of people who have been through a similar process, and therefore they're not reaching out to create codependency with their loved ones and friends, but they are resonating this self-sufficiency. They have their shield up, their batteries are full, but what's happening then is there is excess energy, and that excess energy is overflowing. The cup overfloweth at this point, and there is this desire to now exchange and create partnerships and start projects and form relationships and have these exchanges with now the abundance of energy because of all these changes that have happened. I'm sensing a lot of new partnerships forming, partnerships unlike the ones from your previous world. And I'm sensing a lot of new creative projects and passion projects coming in. And a lot of these partnerships and passion projects are sort of rumbling right now as if there are puzzle pieces that are coming in. It may not be 100% apparent what those things are, but there are synchronicities and indicators of what those puzzle pieces are. And so at this point, you may be able to guess where it's going, but you're not there yet. And you may be able to sense that it's coming, and you have confidence about that because your inner world is planting these seeds. The seeds that are planted in your internal world, they can't help but grow plants of the same species in the external world. So every seed bears a signature of whatever fruit it bears. And if your internal world has a particular type of seed that it's planting, that will show up in your external world. So at this point, this collective senses that a whole new type of energy signature and seed is being sown within, in their world within, and it will be reaped in the external experience, just, as B follows A. It's a natural consequence of the changes that have happened and the shifts that have happened internally. So right now, it is a question of patience and trust in the process, because because life is essentially rolling out with this whole new world. I'm getting like the Aladdin song, the carpet ride, this sense that there's this whole new world that you're coming into that's more magical and more intuitive, and there are more synchronicities. And there is no doubt that there's been a price paid of essentially opening up the space for this new world to come in. And so if you're sort of running into this, sort of the advice is to make sure that your cup is all the way emptied out of those old vibrations, and trust that these new vibrations are much better, and it will I'm sensing it will blow your mind. Once these things start to come, once the old is emptied out and the new starts coming in, you are going to step into a world that you have dreamed of, and that will allow you essentially to step into the full potential of the self that you know has been in there the whole time. All of this was a process. All of this was divine orchestration. So have confidence that losing the things that you have recently lost, but now discovering these intuitive gifts and rearranging your whole ecosystem was all part of a much larger plan that you're a part of. I believe that this collective that I'm speaking to is relatively large in number, and I believe that the puzzle pieces that I'm talking about are formed by this collective. If you sense somebody coming in and there's a resonance, and you sense that they are a piece of the puzzle, it's very likely that they are, and that they have gone through a similar process that you have just gone through, where they had to sort of step away from an old familiar world where they were comfortable and they had found a groove, but then that world started to fall away and unravel. But then that created space for the new to be born in, and now you're sort of looking out into the horizon, and you see the sun rising, and it is a radiant light that is coming up that you can sense. and you sense that there is infinite potential unfolding. So if you have found this video, I trust that you are part of that collective. So let go of the old vibrations that are coming in. Trust the intuition that is guiding you to rearrange your whole energy signature, and then get excited about the seeds that you are sowing right now in your inner world, and continue to do that in the positive emotions that you associate with your dreams and with your vision. Spend time in visualizing what that looks like and what that feels like. Take a walk in that area in your mind's eye and allow yourself to enjoy those things, and that will call those things into existence in your life. So hopefully this has reached you at a time to validate your experience. There are many of us that are going through it, and I have sensed these puzzle pieces coming together for a lot of people. Trust the process and look forward to what's next. I'll talk to you next time.